Skeletoni says, what's up, y'all?
I'll let you go, just need some time. At your own pace, you need to find your way. I know now you'll never change your mind for something that matters to me. You do not know what I have in mind. I packed our bags, we'll be on our way. The night was long as I waited without a sign. A sign of what matters to you. But what do you want? What's your biggest need? Every hour we spend together, then suddenly the chances are small, just like the lottery.
What the fuck did I just read? I didn't do anything that had to do with reading yesterday. I edited my video and I did a puzzle and relaxed. That's all I did yesterday. Didn't read. So I didn't finish Lakewood, but I finished Lakewood this morning, and I think I'm gonna give this a 3.5 stars. When I was first talking about this, I was talking about how I actually liked the fact that there was no central plot other than our main character, Lena, sort of talking about these experiments that are happening to her, that she doesn't really know what they're doing to her, but she knows that scary things keep happening. And I really loved all that. I actually loved the vibe of this book a lot because it's really creepy and sinister, but it's also mysterious and confusing and unknowable in some ways. And I think that works really well with the narrative style of this book. Where I think this book fell short for me is the ending, and I am not somebody who hates ambiguous endings, but I think that the nature of this book and the fact that it is so incredibly ambiguous for the last quarter of this book, you don't have any answers, and that bothered me, even though I think that's the point. You may have heard or know about the term the Night Doctors, and this is something that is explored in this book, and it's something that's talked about in history generally. And these are basically white doctors who would specifically experiment on Black bodies. And so that's what this book is about. That's the core of this book, and that's what I really, really liked about it. I really liked the concept of this. And it's just really the ending that fell flat for me. It's interesting because I'm not saying that if you like one, you'll like the other, but I do think that Catherine House and Lakewood have similar vibes. It's just that Lena is not an insufferable main character like the main character in Catherine House, in my opinion. But much like Catherine House, there's a lot of vibes in here, and it plays off a lot of those creepy vibes, and it plays off of your experience reading it. And the only way I can describe it is vibes. Like, it's the creepy, sinister, weird vibes that you get throughout the entire book is the book itself. It's your experience reading the book. That's the only way I can explain it. It's not necessarily fully about the plot. It's about how it makes you feel and how horrific that feeling is. So I do think that if you loved Catherine House, you'll probably really like this book. But somebody should let me know if you've read both of these, if you feel the same way. So now I think I'm gonna pick up Winter Counts because I kind of want to dive back into a thrillery type book. I know this is crime fiction, so it's probably not going to be as fast-paced as No Exit, but I'm excited to read this one. So the small amount that I do know is that this takes place on the Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota, and Virgil Wounded Horse is our main character, and he's kind of like a vigilante. So people on the reservation will tend to hire him when they need something investigated or they need something taken care of that would otherwise need to involve law enforcement. They're gonna start yard work, so I'm gonna go.
It's been 72 weeks in this town. I still believe I'll see you again. No matter what, I got off the ground for something that matters to me.
I've officially busted out my spooky mug. I was actually pretty cold this morning because I took a shower and I braided my hair. I don't know why. I didn't feel like doing it. If you don't know, I have curly hair and sometimes I just don't feel like doing it, so I braid it. But when I do braid it, it does mess up my curl pattern. I just didn't want to do my hair this morning. I just didn't want to do it. But yeah, I showered and I was cold because we had our AC on all last night because it was kind of humid and hot yesterday. So I was cold this morning and I wanted a hot drink, and here we are. It's also just still really hot. I'm not even gonna pretend to drink it. But before I'm getting into what I'm reading, I'm actually surprisingly in a good mood. Part of it is because I got some book mail from a friend. Today's a weird day for me. It's one of my niece's birthdays today, but it also marks the 10-year anniversary that my mom passed away, and I'm feeling really weird about it. I'm just having a weird mental day. But I wanted to show you the book mail that I got because my friend, who I love to pieces, Kim from Lady Native Book Warrior, sent me a book and a sticker, and I'm just so excited. So she sent me The Night Watchman, and we both participate in an Indigenous book club, and this is gonna be their pick, I think, not for this month, but for next month. And so I'm gonna be able to read it. I'm so excited. I've been wanting a copy of this since I've seen it, but I wanted to get into the Love Medicine series by Louise Erdrich before I got into this one. But you know, thank you so much, Kim. She also sent me this sticker that said, "More cats, less catcalling." And it's perfect because I have two cats, Olive and Fitzy, and most of the time you see Olive in my videos. She is the black cat. So yesterday I had started winter counts and I got like more than halfway through this, but I think I had a quarter of the way left by the time I went to bed last night. I finished it this morning when I was getting ready for the day. I really enjoyed this book. I will say, if you are expecting a thriller that will put you on the edge of your seat from the very beginning, this is not that type of novel, but the last like 15-20% of this it had me on edge the whole time, and I kind of knew where the story might be going, but it still kept me on edge, and I was surprised by some of the reveals in here. But especially the fact that this teaches you a lot about reservation politics and policing, and the fact that the reservation only has so much jurisdiction over certain crimes that happen on the reservation, which is something I've become more aware of in the last couple of years. But this really dives into that, and our main character is technically not a detective. He's what people call a hired thug throughout this. So some people respect him and some people don't. But basically, a lot of the people on the reservation go to him to try to solve a lot of the issues that maybe the police would be called for on the reservation, so that they don't have to deal with the jurisdiction issues, especially because most of the community doesn't feel comfortable calling in the police because they feel like they're not going to see justice within that situation. So this made me think so much about Seven Fallen Feathers and how the justice system continuously fails Indigenous people. So it made sense to me that there would be somebody on the reservation that they turn to that isn't part of the justice system. There's also an author's note where he talks about the inspiration for this story and the fact that it is a work of fiction, but it's informed by current and historical events. But I really, really enjoyed this. I especially enjoyed the fact that there was just something about this book that made you feel completely immersed from the very beginning. I liked the characters. I loved learning about everything. and I really liked our main character Virgil a lot. I actually highlighted so many passages in here that I didn't expect to. I guess when I think of a thriller or even a crime detective novel, I don't think about wanting to annotate it, but I ended up highlighting a bunch of parts in here. And then, you know, I've been reading Her Body and Other Parties, but I'm actually behind. I'm like 2 stories behind. I read the story that was like all about Law and Order stuff. Like she was recapping specific Law and Order episodes. So I have 3 stories left, and hopefully I'll read the 2 tonight and then read the last one tomorrow for the last day of the readathon. And then in true Stephanie fashion, my mood reading has taken over, and I ended up downloading 2 audiobooks from the library that I'm really interested in reading right now. One is a horror and one is a thriller, and I'm kind of in the mood for both, but I'm leaning more towards a thriller. So I found that the audiobook Every Last Fear was available at my library, so I downloaded that one. And then I also downloaded a horror, which is Into the Drowning Deep. The thing is, the Drowning Deep is really long, so that would be for sure my last book of the readathon. I don't even know if I could finish it in time, whereas the other one I definitely could finish for the readathon. I'm in the mood for both of them, so I might just listen to a chapter of each. That's my birthday, and that's where I was born. So, hello? Hello, so I'm 40% into The Drowning Deep, and you know when you're reading a book and you absolutely know that the author is 10 million times smarter than you, and this book is 10 million times smarter than you, but you read it, you feel stupid, and you love every second of it. That's how I'm feeling. I'm really enjoying this book, but it's all about like science and marine biology, and it's going right over my head, but I'm having a good time. So in part 1, I'm just now getting to part 2. Part 1 is basically the setup of everything. So everybody is getting together, they're on this boat, they realize they're gonna be on this boat for a while. And between some of these characters, they already have pre-established relationships that you're kind of getting to know right now. It's so interesting. I really like all of the characters. I will say that I'm having trouble remembering all of their names, except for Tori, who is the person that I think this book is really going to focus on. And honestly, I think that if you went into this expecting it to be a really fast-paced horror book, that's not what this is. There's definitely a slow build to something. The beginning gives you a taste of the creepiness that's going to happen, but then it goes into the build up and establishing these characters. So I think it's a slow build to something horrific. I think there's 5 parts, so I'm interested to see how each part starts to get a little creepier or build off the other one. I don't really know how this book is gonna go. I do know that the average star rating on here, from my friends anyway, is like 3 stars. I've seen a few 4 stars, but it's mainly 3 stars. The only other book from Shauna Maguire that I have read is Every Heart a Doorway, and I enjoyed it fine enough. I read the first 2 in the Wayward Children series, and then I haven't moved on with it yet. So I should probably finish that at some point, especially if I like this book. But I did see Shauna Maguire on a panel at Comic-Con, because I went to Comic-Con in 2019. It was my first time ever going to Comic-Con, and she was on a panel, and it was really funny because I think the panel, the majority of the time, they were asking about crafting fantastical worlds and how do you world build and make compelling characters, and the entire time she basically ignored it and talked about frogs and how cool frogs were. Even if I don't like this book, I'm still gonna think about the time that Shauna Maguire was just talking about frogs on a panel about world building and characters and fantasy.
Close your eyes, get out of your skin. Only this matters, let it in.
I did it. I finished my last book of the readathon. We're not going to talk about Her Body and Other Parties because I'm pretty sure I'm just not going to be able to read it, and I don't feel like reading for the rest of the night. I just want to play my game and like never think about a book again. I'm totally kidding. I had so much fun. This was probably my most successful readathon, and I think it's because it was a week long. Every time I do anything that's like 24 hours or 2 weeks or 1 month, I can't stick to the readathon, but a week long, it's kind of a perfect length for me. But let's talk about Into the Drowning Deep. I really enjoyed this, but I am giving it a 3.5 stars for a few reasons. I just want to tell you about what this book is kind of about. Basically, years ago, there was an expedition for scientists and this TV production company that does documentaries to go out to the Challenger Deep so that they could find mermaids and prove that mermaids are real. But something happened and everybody on that expedition died. And the main character of this story, the central character, Victoria, aka Tori, her sister was part of that expedition and died. What came out of that expedition was this really rough footage that shows a mermaid. But people believed that the TV company superimposed it or photoshopped it or did whatever so that they could kind of get away with the fact that people on this expedition died and it was kind of their fault. So fast forward, we're in 2022. Imagine Entertainment has decided to try to fix things and redo this expedition, but they're making it safer and they have a lot more scientists and people on this expedition that could prove that mermaids are real. So that's where Victoria comes in. She's a scientist and she's like, hell yeah, I'm gonna take this opportunity because I want to avenge my sister. I want to bring her back. She kind of believes that her sister might still be alive or that she can like avenge her sister in some sort of way. So she decides to go. And then you have Dr. Jillian Toth, who is a marine biologist, and she has spent a lot of her career trying to prove to people that mermaids are real. And most people think that she is crazy. So that's her purpose for wanting to come on this expedition, because she wants to prove everybody wrong. And then you have Olivia, who is part of Imagine Entertainment, and she is a TV personality. She does a lot of the interviewing and documentary stuff, but she also is kind of a scientist as well, but she's mainly just there for the TV personality and interviewing stuff. And then you have 3 sisters, 2 of which are deaf and 1 who is not deaf, but she basically interprets. And their role is really important because they believe that mermaids might sign or use some form of ASL to communicate. So they are there to try to communicate with the mermaids if they come in contact with a mermaid, if mermaids are real. This is where my problem with this book lies. There is a slew of a bunch of other characters, and each of them are scientists or play some sort of important role in finding these mermaids to some degree. And at some point or another, you follow most of them and you learn a little bit about them. And it's too much. There are too many plot lines happening and too many people with different reasons for being there. And I think if we would have focused on just the central characters that I was talking about, which it focuses the most on them, but you get a lot of side stories and learning how people connect. So this is like, I think it's almost a 500, if not a little bit more, page book. And there's just kind of too many characters that you're following. And honestly, that probably wouldn't have bumped it down for me if we wouldn't have also had a ton of science and scientific jargon and scientific discoveries and discussions that absolutely went over my head. And all of it combined at times made me feel really lost, and I don't want to say uninterested because I was really interested in the concept of this book, but at times it was just hard for me to continue to pay attention and not glaze over because I didn't understand what was happening or what was being talked about. Like I said in the beginning, this is a book that is so smart. Even if the science is incorrect, I would never know because it sounds so smart and it just feels really smart. My pea-sized brain just needs one or the other. You either have to be really smart or you have a lot of characters. Pick a lane. But honestly, I really enjoyed this book. I thought a lot of the characters felt really real to me. I liked a lot of their relationships. I liked a lot of their relationship dynamics. There was a lot of diversity in here. And this is just like a terrifying concept. I'm so scared of the ocean and open water, so this definitely played into my fear. So I think I did all right. I had such a fun time this Summerween, and I'm so thankful to Olivia and Gabby for hosting this readathon. I'm so excited for next year, but this has also just made me way more excited for October. So we'll see what kind of content I have in October. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this vlog, and I will talk to you guys next time. Oh yeah, Skeletoni wanted me to let y'all know that he says later.